Hi Year 12, this is Mr. Azapadi with another video on Buddhist meditation. The last video looked at the idea of do you need to be a Buddhist to meditate? Do you need to be religious to meditate? This is looking at another debate within the meditation topic, which is, can meditation be bad for you? So the title is, how can we evaluate whether practicing meditation can have negative results? So make sure you've got that title written down. Now we're going to look at this from two different directions. First, we're going to look at some evidence which suggests that in some cases meditation can have negative results for people's mental health, which is interesting. In that, we've looked at a lot of evidence, and even probably before studying, you've probably heard a lot of things saying meditation is really good for people's mental health. But there is some evidence that in some situations it can be bad for people. Now, if you stop to think about it, it actually makes some sense, because if someone's suffering from severe mental health problems, the idea of getting that person to sit on their own in silence with no distractions from their mind, probably seems kind of common sense that might have some problems in some situations. And yes, it does turn out that it has had some problems in some situations. So that's one half of things, the idea that meditation can have some problems for mental health. The other side of things is the idea that meditation is bad for you in that it makes you a less good person. Now, that might seem like strange, like surely meditation makes people calm and all those kind of things. Well, some people argue, though, that the thing about meditation is it's all about yourself and it's all about focusing on your own mind. Some people argue that it makes you kind of, less compassionate, caring, thinking about others. It makes you self-obsessed and just think about yourself. Well, we'll have a look at that as we come to it. So, make sure we got the title in, and then I'm going to go through the tasks, which involve some readings, which I'll put on Teams. I'll go through those things I'll explain exactly what you need to do as the video goes on. Okay, so we're going to look at an article first of all. So the article, I think the title of my file is Article on the Problems with Meditation. The title of the article is from the Independent newspaper, and its title is Meditation is touted as a cure for mental instability, but can it actually be bad for you? Now, what I want you to do, first of all, we're basically going to read this article and try and pull out some of the information from it that we can use as evidence that meditation might be bad for you. Now, so what I want you to do is write out the title, the author who wrote the article, the newspaper it appeared in, the date, just so that you have all the details of what this article was, and then answer these questions as you read through. First of all, it starts with the story of Aaron Alexis, quite a shocking story. Just explain what happened to him. In other words, how did he practice meditation, and then what happened in the end? And, why does it raise questions about the benefits of meditation? Then explain, using at least one quote from her, what happened to a woman called Louise after she started practicing meditation. Thirdly, what evidence did David Shapiro, he's a professor in an American university, what evidence did he find to support the idea that meditation can be bad for you? I want the kind of details of what his study was, and give the university he was at. I think it was UCLA, which is University College of Los Angeles? But UCLA is what you need. And then, what did he do in his study and what were his findings? You need the numbers. And lastly, what does the Hindu teacher Swami Ambikananda mean when she says that meditation needs to be embedded in a context? So read through the article, pause the video, and I'll give a bit of feedback, not much, but make sure you've got answers to those questions. Okay, you should have unpaused the video now. I hope you've got your answers to those questions. Aaron Alexis' case is obviously a really tragic one, and really interesting. It's quite a shocking thing that happened, but obviously it indicates, what happened to him indicates that there may be a problem with meditation. Again, you just need to have the evidence from the woman called Louise. I think the interesting thing about it was that she said one of the problems she found was that her sense of self changed dramatically. Well, that is actually what Buddhism is trying to get to happen in meditation. But obviously she experienced it in a negative way rather than in a positive way. And that's something I think that is significant, that it was actually the idea of a sense of self changing or slipping away that in many cases people experienced as a negative thing. And obviously it had terrible negative effects on her, that she was in psychotic depression, obviously a very severe mental health problem. David Shapiro, So he examined 27 people. It's only a small number of people, but 63% had some negative side effects. 7% had profoundly adverse effects. So a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people found it had bad effects on them. Now, I said I wanted to pick out this thing at the end, which is what does the Hindu teacher Swami Ambikananda mean when she says meditation needs to be embedded in a context? Well, it kind of, this is because I wanted to link back to our last topic, which is when we looked at whether Buddhism, you need to be religious to meditate, because she talks about the fact that you have to embed it within a religious context, in a context. So in other words, she was saying, well, when she does meditation, she's practicing, she's a Hindu, not a Buddhist, but I think we can say there are similarities here. Yes, she's a Hindu, not a Buddhist, but the same idea can be applied in that she's saying that there's something bad happens or something negative happens when people try to take meditation out of the context of religion and just practice it on its own. That you need to have a kind of you need to practice it within the context of a spiritual tradition which kind of guides you on your way as you meditate. Now, to me, the thing that made me think about that is that this sense of no self. In Buddhism teaches that there's no self, and because it teaches that there's no self, when Buddhists meditate, and if they experience a change in their sense of self, they know what to make of that change of a sense of self. They can understand that, well, this is my sense of a fixed self slipping away, and that's a good thing. Whereas if you take it out of the religious context and start to meditate just with no background in Buddhism, it might be that the slipping away of the sense of self can be a really scary thing for some people. So that's how I kind of linked what Swami Ambikananda was saying with the Buddhist idea. Taravajra, I wanted to watch this video. I'll put a link underneath the video on YouTube. He's a teacher of meditation and mindfulness and has also conducted research into the benefits and problems of mindfulness meditation. Just watch the video and see what he says. Just make a note of his name and then just make a note of anything that he says about the negative consequences. Okay, you could have made your notes now. Now, Taravajra, I just think it's interesting that he basically is linking it to people who have severe problems. So he's basically saying if someone's recently had a traumatic event in their life or they're suffering from severe mental health problems, then mindfulness might not be a good situation then, because the idea of mindfulness, using mindfulness to conquer mental health problems, is the idea of like mindfully and calmly looking at what's happening in your mind. But his idea is that when you're most severely in distress, that can be actually a more damaging thing to do. In most situations, it's a good thing to do, but sometimes it's a damaging thing to do. So his idea would be, in those situations, it's not useful to do mindfulness, and you should avoid it in those situations. So I think what comes through here are three things. One, that we've got some evidence that there are some problems, that some problems have arisen for people when they meditate. There's definitely some evidence of that. Secondly, there seems to be a lot suggesting here that, well, if you're suffering from acute mental health problems, maybe that's the time not to be meditating. If you're suffering from lower level anxiety or depression, maybe it works. If you're suffering from acute anxiety and depression, really severe, then maybe it doesn't work so well. The third thing I want to pick out, though, is what I said before about that sense of self. There seems to be a link here between the idea that meditation makes you lose your sense of self and the distress that some people are being caused. So I just want to make you to think about and make notes on this question: what would Bhikkhu Bodhi say? Because we saw in our last lesson that in the reading that Bhikkhu Bodhi gave, Bhikkhu Bodhi said meditation is fine if you're just looking at things like relaxation, de-stressing, making yourself more focused and stuff like that. But then he was saying that the deeper levels of meditation require a Buddhist faith. And within that context, I would say you can make a link here because, like I said, when I was talking about what Swami Ambikananda said, if your sense of ego is or sense of yourself is disappearing in meditation, that can be a profoundly frightening thing and maybe can lead to mental health problems. But if you are within a Buddhist context, you understand the teaching of anatta, and because you understand Buddhism, you feel that that sense of yourself as a permanent thing dissolving is something you want to happen, then you're less likely to feel those mental health problems happening as a result. So just make some notes there to say we can link this with Bhikkhu Bodhi's idea that the higher levels of meditation need to be practiced within a Buddhist context, because some of the experiences that might seem strange and dangerous and frightening outside the Buddhist context would make sense if you understood and agreed with the Buddhist teaching of no self. Okay, so that is one half of things. We've got some evidence that meditation could be damaging, and of course we can balance that with all the evidence we've had so already that meditation is good for you. So in the previous lesson we should have evidence from the readings in the previous lesson of how meditation will have some positive health benefits, particularly when it comes to anxiety and depression. Let's look at the other side of the coin then. We said there were two aspects to this meditation being a negative thing in some situations, and I've put a reference there on this box at the top to what the specification said. The question that the specification asks you to be able to discuss is, does meditation cause an unhealthy, inward-looking approach to life? So this is a slightly different thing. Not does meditation cause mental health problems, but does it make people too inward-looking, too kind of self-obsessed? This one, there's a reading for this, so I just want you to have a look at the reading, and if you can, print it off and highlight it, and then just highlight two colours. Anything that says, yes, meditation leads to a negative approach to life, makes people too inward-looking, put yes, and try to put a number next to each argument, just so that you can see, pick apart. Are there different arguments here? Is it all making the same point, or are there different points? Then another colour, highlight, and put a number next to all the no arguments, all the ones that say, no, actually meditation doesn't necessarily lead to an inward-looking and negative and unhealthily negative approach to life. I'm going to let you do that on your own. I think the reading is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to do any specific feedback on that one. Okay, this is what I want you to do for the rest of the lesson. So this might be the majority of the double lesson, to be honest. I want you to see if you can plan out, in more detail than this, a plan to this this essay question. Spending hours in meditation every day is not good for you. Discuss. So here are the three perils that I would do. Now, the first one, I would look at the stuff we looked at the beginning of the lesson. So I've put basically statements for your peril. Like the statement on the left is your point, and the statement on the right is your response can be based on that. Obviously, you need evidence to explain it in more detail. So I've put meditation is good for you as it has health benefits. Then you can go into specific details. You should have specific details of studies from universities or from people who have shown the health benefits of meditation. Then on the other side, the response, in some situations, meditation can lead to dangerous consequences. That's when you use your David Shapiro evidence, your specific cases of that woman named Louise, of Aaron Alexis, those people. You explain in detail what happened to them to show the difference. How are you going to evaluate that? Well, look, the way I would look at it is that the evidence clearly should suggest that in some situations meditation is good for you, but then think about the things that we said. Maybe in cases of severe mental health problems, it's not good for you. Maybe it's better for you if it's practiced at least the higher levels of meditation within a Buddhist context, because then things that might seem odd to other people, like losing a sense of self, will make sense if you practice them within Buddhism. Okay, so that's our first peril. Second peril is about the stuff you just looked at in that reading. So we're going to give, meditation makes people self-obsessed and unconcerned with others. So look at the reasons the reading gives. Why does it make you self-obsessed and unconcerned with others? Versus meditation doesn't make people unconcerned with others. What can you get from the reading to say, actually, meditation shouldn't be an activity that just makes you more selfish? That's everything from this lesson. Then look, spending hours in meditation every day is not good for you. Well, I want to have a more broader Buddhist peril. So here I've put meditation leads to nirvana, and so can help people overcome all suffering. So talk about how meditation is supposed to lead to nirvana. Talk about how samatha and vipassana work and how they, focus your mind, help you overcome the defilements of the mind, reach the jhanas, and then in vipassana you develop wisdom, which helps you to get a deeper level understanding of Buddhist teachings, and therefore to get rid of all greed, hatred, and ignorance, all that kind of stuff. So you need a kind of explanation of how Buddhism leads to nirvana there. Because look, when it says meditation is not, as meditation every day is not good for you, well, for Buddhism, nirvana is the best thing that can happen to you. So they would say it's very good for you. But how do you argue against that? Well, that's when you go to forms of Buddhism that don't believe in meditation. So you could talk about Kamatic Buddhism, saying, well, we really just want merit. We don't want nirvana. Or Pure Land Buddhism, saying you can't get nirvana right now in the age of Mapo. You have to chant the name of Amida Buddha and so on and so on. And so therefore you're sculpting out. What's interesting about this essay is your conclusion will bring together lots of different arguments, because you're looking at it in three different ways. You're saying, okay, is it good for you for your mental health, or is it bad for your mental health? That's your first mini conclusion. Does it make you self-obsessed to make you more selfish, or does it not? That's your second conclusion. And is it really good for you because it helps you get to nirvana, or is there a problem with that idea? And then you bring them all together. So if I was doing this essay, I'd say something like, well, clearly Buddhism meditation sometimes has negative mental health effects, but for most people it seems to be very positive for their mental health. So in that way it can be good for you. Second one, it's a misunderstanding, I would say, to say that meditation makes you more self-centered. Actually, meditation from a Buddhist point of view should make you more concerned with others. Lastly, from a Buddhist point of view, meditation is one of the most vital things in getting to nirvana, and from that point of view, Pure Land Buddhism is a bit of a distortion of the Buddhist teaching. So overall, I would say, despite the fact that it is to some cases to be avoided for people who've got severe mental health problems, and yes, it probably is more safer, makes more sense if it's practiced within a Buddhist context. But overall, I would say meditation is not something that's bad for you. I hope that makes sense. Again, how you evaluate is up to you, but see if you can. So when I say plan out the essay, what I mean is use those as your starter, and then I want quite a detailed plan. So make sure you've got your evidence, you're explaining your point and your response in detail, and that you're evaluating back to, at the end of each paragraph. And then if you have time at the end of the lesson, why not try and write out at least one of those perils in full? That would be great. Okay, thanks very much.